Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's go do the news. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Clyde Plays News. My name is Clyde, and today we are going to talk about the news that is happening, I guess, obviously, in World of Warships. Today's top story is a bunch of buffs and nerfs. But first, we got to talk about some new ships. Now, normally we would do new ships as the top story of the news program, but today, I don't think so. I was reading those buffs and nerfs this morning when I first woke up, and there were multiple times when I audibly gasped, and I was very excited about what I was reading. I was actually almost tempted to call it buffs and buffs, but there were a few nerfs in the list. First up, we got some new ships. These are going into closed test in patch 14.0. 14.0 being the 0.0th patch of the year. That means it's the first one. We're going to see this coming up in January. It says, welcome to the New Year, Captains. We hope you'll join us for welcoming a few new ships in 2025. I'm paraphrasing. This one is called the Eskimo. Look at this thing. Very British, very gray. I know there's more than one color in the crayon box. Maybe we just have gray now. But it does say F-75 on it, so that's slightly unique. The Eskimo is a tribal class destroyer, and it was commissioned in 1938. Her service record includes the Second Battle of Narvik. If you played Battlefield 5, you've spent time on the snowy fields of Narvik, which is pretty cool. The invasions of North Africa and Sicily, and the operations in the English Channel and to the Far East. She is a sister ship to the Cossack, and she is going to be a little bit different than the way that ship operates. This one has 420 millimeter guns, similar to the way Cossack, with one quadruple torpedo launcher, again similar to Cossack, as well as great concealment. Now that's an interesting note, and I'm going to take a look at these parameters to see if I agree with that statement. Cossack's main battery has a high rate of fire and impressive damage per minute. Eskimo instead packs a bigger alpha strike with a slower reload. So rather than chugga 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 chugga, it's going to be a chugga chugga, and it's going to hit harder but less often. She features HE shells with improved damage and penetration, a characteristic typically associated with British cruisers and battleships. In battle, the Eskimo is going to function as a skirmisher against large targets, using her improved HE shells to deal significant damage to enemy cruisers and battleships. While she's capable of contesting enemy destroyers in a pinch, thanks to her great concealment, she will lose out in duels against enemy gunboats, and should avoid these engagements. She has no smoke generator, so this is one of the things I wanted to talk about. When I first was reading about this, I was thinking about the variant of the Haida, the Huron. Huron is supposed to be like Haida, right? But it doesn't have as good a concealment, and it doesn't have smoke. And I thought to myself, that doesn't really pan out for me. They did give it a heal, and they've done the same thing with Eskimo. Eskimo's got a heal, which is great. Surface detectability is going to be 6.8. So you'll come down to 6.1 with the first 10% buff, and then I think you're going to get to the mid 5s. So it is going to be similar in detection range to Cossack, which is excellent. This is going to make this ship a lot more playable than Huron is, right? Helmet says a Tier 8 Jupiter 42. I mean, maybe. This boat is or could wind up being similar to that, but it does have HE shells, whereas Jupiter does not. Jupiter relies on the AP, but it is kind of punchy in that same way that they described it here. So I think there's an opportunity for this boat to be kind of an interesting take, whereas I found that Huron just wasn't for me. If we take a look at the consumables, we do get that damage control party, regular DCP, just like anybody else. And then a repair party, but no speed boost and no smoke. We don't have a picture for this next one, but there is a Pan American Battleship, the Valparaiso. Tier 9 is coming into the game. Basically, what this looks like is a variant of the HMS Vanguard. We know Vanguard historically is the last battleship completed, if I recall correctly. I'm sure some naval historian will be like, technically, as they push their glasses up and explain to me that that was not a perfectly correct sentence. But the Vanguard is a historic battleship for that reason. She is packed with 8 381 millimeter guns. This one is going to be an AP only version of that battleship. It says with a modernized Vanguard hull as a basis, Valparaiso features a relatively light main battery for a Tier 9 battleship, 4 twin 381mm guns. Despite the low caliber and the small number of guns, with subpar accuracy, Valparaiso is going to pack a formidable punch, or still going to pack a formidable punch. She wants to get up close and personal in battle, it says, to put her secondary battery to work. Okay, maybe she is a secondary battleship. However, as with any battleship, picking the right moment is key. Another ship here listed, again, no image, is the British submarine Seal. This is a large mine, well, this was the historical context, a large mine-laying submarine commissioned by the Royal Navy in 1939. She was heavily damaged in the Battle of, is that Kattegat Strait in 1940, and was forced to surrender by German aircraft. This Seal can club back. Interesting. Armed with 6 533mm torpedo tubes, Seal brings a different twist to submarine gameplay. In battle, Seal plays a hybrid between normal submarine gameplay and that of a torpedo destroyer. All right, I want to hit up this last section here as well. This is not about new ships, but I think it's kind of interesting. Last but not least, in our previous dev blog, we announced a new ship concept. We plan to temporarily add to the game the 3 ships that will be and 3 ships that we'll be testing it with. Now we are ready to share the parameters of those ships. There's the French cruiser Metz, which is a Tier 8 based on the Tier 7 Toulon. The Soviet cruiser Vyazma, trying that out for size, Tier 9 based on Borodino, and the American battleship Oregon, which is a Tier 10 based on the Georgia. These ships are kind of interesting. Let's crack open the Oregon here, because I think a lot of people are familiar with Georgia, either because they have it or they've read about it and they're curious about it. This ship has a total of 74,100 hit points, but it starts the battle with 29,640 hit points. I want you to take an open mind on this, because this is kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy, but I think it could be interesting, and we've got to think about what it could come out and look like. Main battery reload and accuracy improves as your hit points decrease. So you're going to get better reload and accuracy. It's not just adrenaline rush. This is more than that. More accurate and better reload. And I would guess, but I don't know, that you would still be able to have stuff like adrenaline rush, because that's a skill that just you can put on any ship. So roll with me here. As hit points decrease up to a minimum effective hit points threshold. So there is a limit to it. Going below this threshold does not provide an additional bonus. The minimum threshold for this boat, 18,525 hit points. The bonus at the threshold, main battery reload time is improved by 15%. The main battery shell dispersion is reduced by 27%. That's pretty epic. Main battery, 457. It's exactly what we have on Georgia. Here's some information about shells. HE shell 6450, AP shells 15750. I don't know if these numbers are different from Georgia or not. I'm not really panicked about that. Reload time is 25 seconds. Well, you're going to start the battle at 29,000 hit points. So you're going to have some portion of that 15% improvement already, which I think is going to make you better than 25, because I believe that's base. So you're going to have some of that. You can choose basically to heal and give up some of the super accuracy, super reloadness, or you can stay weak. This is an interesting decision to make. I don't know that all players will like this. I got a little trepidation myself, but let's keep reading. There's this concept of limited AP shells. This is also new to World of Warships, and I want you guys to hang with me here for a minute. Limited AP shells. AP shells with improved ballistics, penetration, reduced possibility of ricochet, and a shortened shell fuse time. All of those things are good. Think of these as a consumable, just like a limited number of hull repair, limited number of spotter plane, all of that kind of stuff. So what we're going to get here is a unique ship in a unique event. And they tell us about that a little bit down below. And I want to make sure that people understand that piece, because I don't want to say the World of Warships community is reactionary, but here we go. The World of Warships community is reactionary. You guys have every freedom in the world to be spicy about stuff, but let's be spicy about stuff when we're educated about it, not before. Okay, let me continue reading. This is not the first time this has been announced. People, Gorilla, that's perfect. How dare you, Clyde? See what I mean? No, but if we talk about this, they've already talked about this before. Some of you might be hearing about this for the first time. That's okay, right? It's news. After their initial announcement, I'm just going to read this part. To the new limited shells mechanic, some of you expressed concerns about its purpose and its future. We want to address these concerns. Number 1, limited shells is a standalone mechanic and is not a testbed for premium ammo. Now, I know that some folks are going to hear that and say, Wargaming always lies all the time. Maybe, okay? But what they're telling us right now is that this is not a testbed for premium ammo. This is a consumable that is applied to these 3 ships. Limited shells are tied to specific ships, and they function similarly to existing gameplay mechanics, such as burst fire mode available on ships like Conde or Edgar and Zorki, which also use improved shell characteristics. So yes, that's a goofy mechanic that they just described, but it's not totally different from things that we already have. When you hit this burst fire thing, you're gonna get that. Then it says, limited shells will automatically restock after each battle, similar to consumable charges, and they cannot be purchased with any currency except as part of the standard ship servicing cost. This last one here says the 3 ships mentioned above, and this is important, are planned to be available only for the duration of the event, after which they will be removed from the game. These are event ships. We also want to highlight that these 3 ships, like all ships entering the game, which includes tech tree ships, premiums, and others, will undergo our live testing process to ensure they fit balance. This is a long and many times heard refrain from Wargaming. Now listen, these are words that Wargaming have said. Now in the future, if they come out and they do gold ammo or something, we'll all point back at this and go, those guys did gold ammo. It's just like World of Tanks, except for in World of Tanks, gold ammo is purchased with silver, but that's fine. Well, I understand the concerns there. To be fair, I had those same concerns when they first announced this. This is cool that Wargaming came back and responded to this and explained it to us. So I want to make sure we highlight the takeaways. Number 1, these 3 ships will be added to the game temporarily for an event, and then they will leave the game when the event is over, and they will take their weird ammo with them. Number 2, the ammo is improved ballistics and characteristics and things, just like other funny button things that we can hit on other ships and hit go on, okay? And then number 3, this isn't a Wargaming thing, but like I think we should keep our eyes on this and monitor it as players and make sure we give feedback. I think it's really important for us to give feedback. But I do think that at the moment, they're at least trying to address the question that people have, which is this gold ammo? Believe me, if this was gold ammo, this would be a big change and a big deal for the game. They've been making some changes in the game, right? They recently made their first tier 8 coal ships. That was weird. That's a big deal. That's a big change, right? It's not the same as gold ammo, but like things like that have changed in the game over time. Things that have never been a thing in the world, ever. We've never had a tier 8 coal ship, and now we have 2. That's crazy, right? So things can change. So keep your eye on this, guys, and make sure you provide feedback to Wargaming. But I want to let you know right now, it sounds like this is interesting. As Artemis points out, you can't buy the ammo. That's good. We want that to be true. And then at the end of the day, we are looking at these ships being a temporary thing in the game for a temporary event. Brand reminds us of old premium consumables. Yeah, absolutely. The old days, we had consumables that were premium that you would pay extra silver for. That was gold ammo. That was gold consumables in World Warships, and those went away, which is a good thing. That's a good thing. So bear this in mind. Keep your eyes on it. Is this gold ammo? No. Could they do gold ammo for us in the future? They could. There are no facts about the future. They could. But this right now, this is not gold ammo. So bear that in mind. And definitely, like I said, keep your eyes on this and make sure you share feedback with World Warships. TMNT says, not yet. Exactly. We are jumping over to our top story of the day. And our top story is about a bunch of buffs and nerfs. Hey there, Skada. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing good. Let me boost your volume just a little.
Those new ships.
Got new boaties. Not to mention those 3 weird event ships. No.
I hear they're adding gold ammo. Get your money ready, plebes. You're gonna have to buy bullets now.
Get your gold ammo boxes ready. They can only be put in gold ammo boxes, which are available on the World of Warships website.
I hope so.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. What do you think about that? Do you think there's a chance that could become gold ammo someday? I think there's.
No.
I think people are worried about it. I don't think it will happen but I don't think the possibility of gold ammo is like off the table forever. But this, in my mind, this ain't it, man. I don't think this is
not. It's not that. I can't really talk about it because we've been testing it.
Well, then we should not go any closer to that topic.
I don't think that they are adding a paid form of ammunition outside of selling you things the way they already do. So like
they've got plenty of stuff they're selling.
They could give you some kind of like ships with that kind of gun on it that you paid money for, but I don't think you're gonna have to pay for the bullets.
Yeah. The gold ammo is in the Tennessee, which you could unlock, and it's just great. It always pins everything.
Yeah, right.
Or whatever, or pick your favorite boat with amazing guns.
Gold ammo is available in every Santa's crate. Every mega, buy them now.
Ugh, gross. Okay, let's talk.
Yeah, Bogsy needs a new Camaro.
Oh man, I would love to see Bogsy driving a Camaro. That seems to like a 78, like a old one. All right, that's not this show. We're going to talk about buffs and nerfs. And actually, Scott, I was saying earlier, I feel like this is like buffs and buffs. There's a lot of buffs in there.
There wasn't a lot of nerfs in there that I saw.
There were some. It was non-zero nerfs. But let's talk about this. Novorossiysk Sigma value buff. I don't know that this boat gets a lot of playtime, but hey, I'll take a Sigma buff on Novorossiysk. I think that's fine.
Novorossiysk is the tier 6 like Russian version of Julio, right?
Yeah, the Julio.
Yeah.
It's not as...
It doesn't get played a lot by people who have Julio because Julio is just better.
Yeah, it's pretty strong.
As far as the 6 goes, I'd almost rather just play Andrea Doria and get that sweet sap.
Andrea Doria is a lot of fun, and that's a tech tree boat you can get for free, 90 free. Yeah. Novorossiysk is not bad, but there's a lot of great battleships at tier 6, right? You got your Mutsu, what's the West Virginia 41? Maybe you're an Arizona fan, maybe you're there's a lot of good choices there. So Novorossiysk, I think, just gets lost in the shuffle. But hey, I'll take a buff for it.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's okay if it gets buffed. It's fine though.
Yeah. Renown is getting a whole list of this. What do you think of this? We want to run down these for us? Tell us about Renown.
I don't have it in front of me, so I'll just make some stuff up. It's
no, I got it.
It's gaining 3 feet of bow length
and gold ammo.
Yes, but it's getting a bow off of a Poltava grafted on.
Let's not spread misinformation if we can avoid that. So main battery parameters have changed. We're getting a reload buff from 23.5 down to 22 seconds. We're getting shell ballistics improved. They will now become flatter. Not sure how much flatter, but hey. The fire control system for the stock one, so the non-upgraded one, I think, is getting buffed out to 16.3 kilometers. And then the researchable one is going from 17.4 to 17.9, buff. And then the turret traverse is cutting from 45 seconds to 30. So this ship is going to get a lot better, I think. None of these are big changes, but together it should make the ship a lot more
that's comfortable. That's a lot for any one ship to get. That's
for sure.
There's clearly somebody there at the Wargaming office that's like, I like this ship, but it needs to be better, and they just cranked all the dials.
Yeah, it's British Frank on the 4th floor. I can tell you who it is. I have no idea.
No, it's that fella that does their official stream now. Isn't he British? It's probably him.
Killer Ben?
He's like, like, my great uncle served on that ship, and he told me it had these stats. And they're like, all right, well, good enough for us. Let's change it.
Well, put it in the design doc. Coronel Bolognesi. Maximum AP damage is going. Oh, wait, hang on. You got another thought?
No, I just say I like that boat.
Yeah, and it's getting better. 200 more damage per shot. Combat instructions are getting a little bit better, too. 5% better consumable reload buff. So not big changes to the Bolognesi, but I think it was a fine boat before. And
it's interesting to me to see them pick like a random, like, here's this tier 7 in this line, and we're gonna buff it. Because like when you're playing through that line, I really like the 6 a lot, and because the 6 is the one that's like an Italian cruiser that you fly around in, and it feels good. And then you get to Bolognesi, and it's like, it's a Fiji with like shorter turret
and not as many guns.
But it doesn't. You can't like get overpenned in it like you can in the 6 because it's a Fiji. It's thicker, and so you get beat up a little bit in it. And then it's like then you move on to the 8, and the 8's like the start of the the run of American ships in that line, because like the 8, 9, 10 are all like fake Worcesters or whatever. So that's okay that they're but it's probably all quality of life stuff from people where they're like, people are struggling with the Bolognesi when they get there because it doesn't feel like the rest. That's cool.
And the Bolognesi, like, I remember when I played this one, I was like, oh, sweet, a Fiji. I love me a Fiji. Hey, where's the rest of it, right? Where's the rest of my Fiji? And I didn't dislike the boat because I do like a Fiji and a ship of that class. So I'll take a little buff on this one. I don't think this hurts. I don't know if the 5% consumable buff is going to make a big difference, but I think 200 more damage. I mean, basically that's, you know, some chunk of your damage, and it's going to scale. So the way damage works, and we talked about this recently on the stream, I had a video about it where we watched one of Wargaming's videos and I just provided some commentary. But because all your damage is fractional, 3,000 or now 3,200 is your maximum damage. When you hit certain things, you'll get certain fractions of the damage. You'll only get 3,200 on a Citadel, but that means the fraction will be of 3,200 now instead of 3,000. So all your damage, not just your max damage, is going to go up by whatever that overall percentage is, right? And whatever 200 divided by 3 or 200 into 3,000 is. But that'll kind of buff your damage across. So it should just make this ship more performant across the board.
Yeah, and I think on the Renown buff and on the next one you're going to talk about, I think these are all examples of like, here's some mid-tier tech line ships where they're looking at their performance and they're either underperforming the 6 and the 8 or whatever ships are around them. Like there's not like a linear progression, or they're just underperforming at the tier. And so I think these are like what we want to see. We want them, you know, it's too bad they don't have a guy that just doesn't do this every month. Like they do this maybe like twice a year. We get these kind of paths, right? They
do have a guy this is their job. I met him. Or at least I saw a presentation by him. I didn't like shake his hand, but
they told you he worked there. It was all
he looked like a guy they found outside.
They put you in a bunch of neckbeards in a room. They gave you some sweatshirts and some ballpoint pens.
I can't speak
to
that.
You met Wargaming.
Listen, I don't know.
They took you for a meal with sabers.
There was a lot of artwork on the wall. Okay, it looked very Wargaming.
Next thing you know, you're on a plane back to Germany with COVID. Nobody knows if you really went to Wargaming.
But they do know I got COVID. There is a picture of me in front of the server room door at Wargaming, but I think it's just a server for the people who are working there, not for hosting the games. Anyway, long story short, one thing I want to point out about this Buffs and NERFs article. Oh wait, hang on. Let me rewind one more thing. I did meet the guy who does this, and he showed us some of the magical spreadsheets they used to track stuff. It was kind of interesting. Not allowed to speak about that, but it was cool to meet the balance guy and the balance team. There's a couple of them there. And they do monitor this stuff periodically. When they say we will monitor the performance, it's because that's this guy's whole job. And it was really interesting to learn about that and how they do it.
I would have loved it if your story of his presentation was, well, he he shared his screen and he opened up shiptool.st and wow, what's the stats website? And he was like, well, look here, guys, like I was looking here at WoW's numbers and it looks like this one's not so doing popular. So
not so doing the goodness.
And that's how you're like, wait, this is where you guys get your data? And it's like, where else would we get it?
That'd be hilarious. But no, that was not the case. The other thing I'll point out about these buffs and nerfs is, unlike previous buffs and nerfs articles, they didn't put all of the ships of the same country and line next to each other. So we can see Luca Tarigo's next. But if you skip down a little bit, then there's Cuniberti, right? So some of these are like a few ships.
Oh, that's annoying.
Line.
So there are some lines where they did buffs.
But not all of them, though, because you can see Coronel Bolognesi is alone, and there isn't one up here before the Cuniberti. So just keep that in mind as we're going through.
All right.
That said, what you said about how they do this periodically is pretty good. I feel like it's like quarterly, but I haven't really tracked it.
I think it's biannually.
You think it's twice a year? I guess we can go back and find out.
There's
a right answer to this question.
That's because in real life you're used to the concept of a quarterly review that happens annually, and so you forgot how to count.
That could be. Okay, let's talk about Luca Tarigo. I like the Italian destroyers. I think you like the Italian destroyers.
Yeah, I really enjoyed playing through them. I never play them now because I don't play anything. But when they came out, I enjoyed playing through them.
Mm-hmm.
I like this part of the tier range too. I like Luca Tarigo, but I also like
what I was going to say.
I also like the Cuniberti a lot. So these buffs to Cuniberti down further on the page are nice too.
And they're similar in flavor, right? So on this one, we're talking about the engine power consumable, action time, and their cooldown have both been buffed. So you're going to get an extra 15 seconds of speed, and you're going to get it faster, 40 seconds faster on Luca Tarigo. Similar numbers on Cuniberti if we kind of peak down there, but it's nice. Wixatron says, which of these buffs do you think are performance and which are popularity? Based on what I understand, I think most of them are performance. They did put some notes in this document about popularity buffs, or when
I
they made
don't-
a buff that wasn't
Do you
about
believe they do popularity buffs?
I don't think.
I think they do
don't
popularity
believe they do
nerfs.
I think popularity buffs probably happen, but I think almost every buff or nerf we ever see is probably about performance in almost every case.
There's a lot of clunkers if you play a lot of the ships. There's a lot of clunkers, and there's some of them that never get touched, and it's not like it's a universal opinion that some of them are just clunkers, and so like those ones aren't that popular, and they don't go touch them. So I don't know how much they really care about any of that.
Wixatron's doing the research. He said the last
used
big
to
buff list was 6 months ago.
Yeah, it certainly was.
So you must be closer to right.
We talk, when you look at this stuff too, like we think about like, are they, like this Belfast one. I know I don't want to skip the submarines there because they're really exciting.
We'll hit them.
Good news on Undine and Sturdy. They're getting bladder shell arcs for their secondary.
All right, let's go to the Belfast.
Yes, where's Jeremy Clarkson when you need him? Like, okay.
Oh no! Anyway, good news.
But
the
like all these
Sandero is getting better secondary ballistics.
Yeah, I know, right?
Great.
This is another list of a ton of buffs for Belfast 43. Now we're seeing, wow, and a bunch of buffs for Renown. So here's another ship that obviously that British guy we were talking about is a big fan of, and they wanted to buff
from
for
the
him.
fourth floor. Yeah.
Yeah, but Belfast 43 main battery reload time reduced by a second and a half. That's a pretty big buff.
This is good for Belfast. This is great for Belfast 43.
Because that's a 12-gun cruiser, right? That's an Eden, like a premium Eden at 8, and you've got a higher shell fire chance on it. So now it's gonna, its fun thing is that it has HE, unlike the rest of the, that line or the other ones that have AP only. Faster turret traverse. Oh, and an extra charge of radar.
Don't mind me. I'm just giving you another use of radar.
And this is a boat that like no one plays.
It's not too popular. Yeah.
How long has this been out? This has been out a couple of years. This is they put it out a couple of years ago, and they're like, "Look, we don't want there to be a ton of Belfasts because it's OP. But like, what if we put it out again, but at tier 8, but with no heal, and but it's gonna have smoke, and and it has like torpedoes, and it's never been that much fun to play. You're always just kind of like
in November of 2020, so she's about 4 years old right now.
Oh, okay, yeah. But and it's Belfast 43 has always just kind of felt like, and so like this can't hurt it.
No, this will be great.
I don't know why they choose to do a buff like this, other than the fact that the 6 people who do play it probably put enough stats into the stat bin.
They finally
they were like, "Hey, this thing needs faster firing guns. It doesn't put enough fires per minute out that we thought it would."
Yeah. I mean, that's certainly part of it, right? The way they do their balancing and things.
These buffs make me want to try playing it again, though.
And that's what I think is so cool about them doing these periodic buffs. Because for years I played this game and they didn't do these, right?
Yep.
So like it's cool that they're doing them. Maybe it's just twice a year, like we've been calculating here and discovering or learning or whatever. But that's great. I want them to do these twice a year, every year. Let's go. Yeah. So it's main battery buff, it's HE fire chance buff, and that's big for this ship because it does have, as you said, HE. Turret traverse, small buff, but it'll factor in. And then, of course, more radar is not going to hurt you. Remember, this is a radar and smoke cruiser. It's got both. And we played a couple of those today. I got smashed in both of them, but after a reasonable game in each one. But this boat is going to have that capability. I've had good games in Belfast 43. I just don't choose to play it a lot. But like you, this is making me go, I wonder if that boat's kind of fun now. So I'll have to wait for these buffs to come out, and we'll give her a try.
Yeah, Helmet says the problem is you have to buy it. Yeah, well, that's the case with all of the premiums on this list that they've buffed. All right, you're right. Grats.
Helmet says it's not even in Santa crates. I didn't know if that was true or not, but I'll trust you for now, unless I check it out later. But
maybe they took it out because it was just so awesome.
I can't remember if it was on the list of the ones they plucked out of there, but
if they did, it was probably because nobody played it anyway. But
Well, yeah, for sure. But I mean, if you happen to have one, it's probably worth trying again once this patch rolls out.
Yeah.
Dmitry Pozharsky is getting a damage buff. We talked about how, you get a little more damage. That's going to affect all your hits, your citadels and your other hits as well. Same thing here. You're getting a 10% damage buff, 3,000 to 3,300. Good for Dmitry.
I don't know that. I don't think that ship needed it. I think that's interesting. Mm-hmm. There was a ship that some people got from the event, I think, when it came out.
Because it was a
and
freebie.
then,
You could unlock that one for
and
free.
yeah, and then now it's available for coal. It's like that first tier 8 coal boat. So they probably have a lot more data on that boat now than they did for a long time.
That's a good
people have been
point.
playing it. But I always thought the guns were serviceable. I liked the AP on it. I thought it worked fine. I wouldn't complain about doing more damage with it. I just don't know if it needed this. So it's kind of interesting that they picked that one.
Yeah, I felt like Dmitry was fine. Not having HE, they might be comparing it against ships. It's got to compete at tier, and players got to be successful in it and everything. And so maybe they're noticing that it's missing a little bit of its punch because it lacks that HE. Maybe, I don't know. Or maybe it's just based on raw numbers and things.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it doesn't have HE means that you have to know where to put your shots with it. Right?
Yeah, it requires a little bit more of you to pay attention.
And so, like, it has a higher skill floor than Kutuzov or Irian.
Yeah. Helmet says just pick that one up for tonight for coal. And then Elar says the Belfast 43 was taken out of the Santa boxes because it was too powerful. Wargaming put Giulio Cesari in the boxes because it is a far less powerful ship. Thanks, Elar, for the sparkling commentary.
Top shelf disinformation.
Top shelf reporting. Yeah.
Yes, good stuff.
Here's that Cuniberti. Again, action time for the engine power is going from 25 seconds to 40. So you're going to get 15 seconds more speed. And your reload time's coming down 40 seconds. A nice buff all around for Cuniberti.
Yeah,
I do think that people are going to like these buffs for those. Although you and I liked this line beforehand.
Yeah, I'm not going to complain about it's still, I think there was always this thought on that line that people were like, oh, well, if you have that, you could speed boost and smoke and do the whole Palo thing, and you can't.
No.
And 25 seconds of action time to 40 isn't really going to have a huge effect on being able to pull that off. It might make it a little more possible, but I think it's good for these ships because the people, a lot of people when they get to Cuniberti would never liked it or didn't like it as much because that's the one where the concealment jumps. You go from you go up in the mid sixes, I think, once you get to Cuniberti, and that makes it a little bit harder to figure out. So.
Well, and we saw these boats come out, and they weren't very popular, especially the upper tier ones, right? People are like, ugh, the Italian ships are so bad. And they're not bad, but they're very, very specific playstyle. Yeah. And one of the things that was hard, I think, for players was to stay alive in them. And what you'll be able to use this additional speed for is to escape dangerous situations or to be harder to hit. So you're going to live longer when you're in a dangerous situation. I think that's a good thing. Like you said, I think a lot of people were hoping that you'd get a Tech Tree Paolo. First of all, that's silly. We don't want a Tech Tree Paolo. That's crazy. I do not want 9 ships from tier 2 all the way up to tier 10 that act like Palo. Palo is a sometimes food. It is a special boat. It can't be the model for a line. And you're right, that extra 15 seconds, it's not going to let you Palo, but it's going to help you stay alive. So I think this is a survivability buff, and I think it's going to work.
Yeah, it's going to help you dodge, duck, dive, and a lot of play in that. A lot of it's you've gotten yourself into position, you're firing in your concealment as long as you're kind of building on the and I know the playstyle on them's tweaked a little bit because a lot of people hated the original mechanics.
They expanded the main gun range and everything.
They expanded the range, which changed it, but like ultimately, like you use your smoke and your speed boost on this to disengage and get yourself out of trouble, and then go you saw back in and re-engage, right? And that's kind of in and out. That's how you protect the ship. That's its we talk about destroyers where you have to have a couple of the 3 things or 2, one of the 3 things. So you have to be fast, you have to have a heal, or you have to have smoke. And this lets that line be fast and have smoke kind of at the same time.
And that's kind of its survivability style.
That's its survivability style. Because these ships are kind of like, Cuniberti's not so bad, but especially when you get up to the Regulo, like it's a big ship in the water. It's easy to hit broadside.
Yeah, that's for sure. So whereas, we talked about Palo earlier. Palo uses these things to get into trouble. The rest of these, the tech line should use them to get out of trouble in a lot of cases. You can do a little smoke speed boost farming too. Don't tell me. I'm not here to tell you can't do it. But you're right that it's definitely part of it.
I don't think it's for going deeper into trouble. I think it's for
being in trouble and escaping out.
Working in the trouble and then getting out of the trouble.
I think that's a fair thing. The split is getting buffs as well, guys. So main battery buff for the split, and the torpedo launcher is getting reduced on its reload time as well. I like split. I think split might be my favorite ship in this line. And this to me feels like just a Christmas present that this boat didn't need. So thank you, Wargaming. I didn't need this myself, but I'll take it. What do you think? Did you enjoyed Split? But I know you kind of liked 9 as well.
I'm the only person that likes Katsonis.
You're I think the only person.
I actually don't like Split very much because
really?
Isn't Split the one that's it's like a La Fantasque or something? Like, isn't it that one? I don't remember.
It's a real boat. I know that much. It's the tier. Obviously, it's the tier 8.
It's the 8. Anyway, I know I don't like Split very much, and I don't really like the slow Gador at 10. I liked Katsonis and its weird turret layout, but I'm like the only one who did. But anyway, like, yeah, you've just made it shoot faster and have faster reloading torpedoes. What more do DD players want? And it also has a radar that reloads as fast as those torpedoes.
And
so,
smoke,
like,
by the way. So let's go. Right. This is a good boat, and
I still don't feel like you see a lot of those playing though.
Like Gdansk, the whole line, you mean, or this boat?
I feel like I see it that often.
Yeah, I think people like Gdansk. It still shows up in ranked and places, but I don't know. I wanted to like this line more than I do. I think that this line certainly has its fans. I'm medium to indifferent on it. It's okay, but yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting line in that way.
I like it better than the new French DDs.
I do like it better than the new French DDs. The whole line, I think I like better than the French
So there
DDs.
you go. I'll say that. That's a nice. If I had to say something, my mom would say something nice. Or I say, okay,
bless
Mom.
your heart. You know, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I like it better than the other new ones that I really don't like.
This is the least hateful of the two. No, that's not necessarily your message, but yeah.
Kind of a backwards compliment.
Poor Orage and whatever the 10 is called, Cassard. This next one is the first one that has an italicized. Listen, guys, we feel like we need to explain this.
Yeah, I like this.
Which is kind of cute, I think, from Wargaming. It says, while Champagne performs well in terms of damage, her impact in the battle is somewhat low. Therefore, we're adding the main battery reload booster consumable to help her impact battles at important moments. Champagne has really long range and she's really accurate. So you can be far away and farming with Champagne. And I think that's one of the reasons why it might be a good damage farmer, but it isn't necessarily influencing games for the better or for your team's better, right? That's a theory. I don't know that that's true, but like that's kind of what I'm reading here. But look at this. We get main battery reload booster on Champagne. I'm stoked about this. This is great. Speaking of boats that are not in the Santa crates this year, they pulled this one out.
Yeah, Champagne's weird that way because then it came out, they sold it, then they didn't sell it. Then it was in that trial run of the Hemorrhage for Victory event to see if people would bite on that shenanigan, and so a bunch of people got it then.
Sure.
And then it's still not. I don't think it's still in boxes. Can you even buy it in the premium shop?
You can't buy it in the premium shop, and it
comes and goes.
And it was in Santa boxes last year, and this year they actively took it out. So
it's like it's an interesting ship. I've always liked it. I've liked things about it, but I agree. While you can get damage out of it, it is hard to have like when you need an important impact. It's not that boat because the armor's so thin, and the guns are accurate, but you only have 6 of them, and it's that Republique layout. You know, it's 6 guns with 3 in the front, 3 in the back,
or whatever.
Yeah, but it's super accurate and shoots really far. Yeah. And so having a main battery reload booster on it is something I would not complain about. I don't know if this makes me go, time to main Champagne.
It
but
doesn't do that for me,
it makes me go, hey, I should play Champagne and see how it feels with this. Maybe I can smash some cruiser now.
Yeah, I wonder about that. Here's a conspiracy corner. Do you think they removed it from the Santa crates because they knew this was coming? Or are these just two things that happened?
I mean, if Belfast 43 also got removed from the Santa crates, then I totally think that's a conspiracy.
That's total tinfoil hat tomfoolery, but maybe, I don't know.
If all the premiums on this list are no longer in Santa crates this year.
I don't think that's necessarily true, but anyway, Champagne, that's one they've treated weirdly in terms of distribution for a long time. So it could be totally independent of that. But thinking about this, hey, wait a minute.
It's definitely one of the tier 8 premium French battleships in World of Warships.
Yeah, but you should play Gascon because it's way sillier.
Or Picardy because you just got it. Everybody who's listening.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not even just me you're talking to. Okay. Marco Polo is a battleship. We actually just played this one on stream the other day. It is
Did you?
Yeah, it came up on Selectomatic, picked it for us randomly.
Okay.
And so we played it, and we talked a little bit about why this boat's supposed to be special. It's because it has 406 millimeters sap. And that means you'll get a little bit more pen. It's like 6 or 8 millimeters more pen, but you also have like 14 or 15,000 base damage on the shells, which means that when we talk about that damage, right, all your damage is fractional based on the max damage of the shell. You should get pretty big bites out of ships when you connect and hit with it. But it doesn't have smoke like Italian battleships do, and it's just kind of a battleship after that. And it's kind of meh. I want it to be fun, and it's kind of just meh. But it does sit there and accumulate damage because of the high value, the high alpha on its larger shells. And it's getting a little bit of a main battery reload buff, 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, that's good because the reload on it sucked.
Yeah, it's 36 seconds. It's going to 34.5, which is still
punitive
kind of
because the sap was punchy. I've always hated this ship because I thought that like, oh, it has 406s instead. It's like it didn't have smoke. It came out when the line did, and it wasn't like the line, and it's just kind of like, it's always made me mad. And then a few months later, they put out Giuseppe Verde, which is like the one with smoke and secondaries and stuff. And it's like, well, that sounds like a more fun ship. Like, why did you know? I get what Marco Polo's gimmick is. It's good that they fixed the reload. I would much rather have seen a little bullet here that said, and gave it exhaust smoke.
I think the exhaust smoke would have been, I would have kept the bad reload and gone with the exhaust smoke if I could pick between those two.
Yeah.
And this is a small buff, right? This is the kind of thing where 6 months from now, when we have another one of these buffs and nerfs, I'll be looking for another Marco Polo adjustment.
I mean, like, because like I'm fine.
They do them in little steps.
I'm fine with Roma not having smoke because it also doesn't have sap, and I'm fine with Giulio Cesare not having smoke because it also doesn't have sap. They're from a different era of Italian battleship design
or whatever.
But this one just always felt lame to me.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think this one. I like that it's getting a buff. I don't think this is enough to make Marco Polo more fun than Giuseppe Verdi, which is the secondary one you were talking about. But it needed an adjustment, and it got a little something, so that's good. Dmitry, Donskoi is getting 5 more seconds to its base radar duration. A lot of the Soviet cruisers that have radar have a pretty short duration. Most of the nerfs or buffs and adjustments that we've seen have been decreasing Soviet radar duration. Stalingrad comes to mind, and I feel like there was another Soviet cruiser where they shortened the radar duration. I know they did it to Stalingrad in 2 phases, but I thought there was another destroyer or cruiser.
Remember if they did it to another one or not? Maybe
I could be wrong.
This one is like, okay, well, if you're doing this one to 30 seconds, is Nevsky going up to like 35? Like, because I don't want that. Like,
no, I don't want that either. When Nevsky's
like,
not me,
I don't want long. The whole point of the old mechanic was the American heavies had longer duration, 10-kilometer radar, and the Russians had shorter duration, 12-kilometer radar.
And that was the give and the take, right?
Right, and all they've done in the last few years, they've shortened the duration of the American one.
Well, that's because they added that super ship that had.
Right. Yeah, and so and now here we're like, well, we need to make this longer. Boo, boo to that, I say. I don't like this buff.
Yeah. I think it's good for Donskoi because Donskoi is not super powerful, but the sort of slippery slope argument, and I'm not saying that to take away from what you're saying, but like, you know what I mean? That concept of does this set a precedent is an interesting question that you're raising. So yeah, for me, this one doesn't bother me like it does for you, but I see what you're saying.
Well, yeah, but then when you throw captain skills on this and you throw a radar module on this Donskoi, what's that? Push that. Talking like 38 seconds? Like, I mean,
probably, but remember, Donskoi has like a 12-second reload, right? So like, how much work is it going to get done in that time period?
It's friends that are going to do the work.
Well, you're 100% right.
Like with every radar cruiser,
you're 100%
right. I mean, I don't know.
This radar lets you get a third salvo, basically, is what it's going to let you get. So.
Down with spotting. Ooh.
All right, this next one's for you, Skada. Your favorite Tier 9 Japanese battleship.
I mean, this is a legitimately good buff to a legitimately trash ship.
Take us home. Tell me about Hizen and this buff.
Hizen's crap. That's what I'll tell you about Hizen. Hizen was like, what, the Christmas dockyard 3-4 years ago now?
Some number of years ago. It was a Christmas dockyard.
Ismo hull with a bunch of extra turrets, and it sucks, and it's no fun to play.
It's got 12 guns, 12 410s. Woo!
Yeah,
and I like the 12 410s. What I don't like, a 38-second main battery reload. That's so nasty.
So like now that it's down to 34, when you build it for reload in slot 6, it's going to be like 30, right? Like,
so I think you're going to get.
It's going to be like everything else with those guns that don't quite overmatch things. So fine. I still don't think that I do not believe that next month for Lunar New Year we're going to see a landslide of Hizens hitting the high seas, but hey, maybe we will.
Yeah, I will tell you this. I'm looking forward to playing 34-second reload Hizen. I think it's going to be great.
I actually feel like
this boat needed this. This is a good buff.
So like there's a lot of people probably never even seen Hizen, like, and because nobody plays it, and so if you've seen a Wami's like the reuse. They're like, well, we had this thing nobody played, and so then they put out a Wami, and it's like the same hull, but it has guns, 8 guns that reload faster and are more accurate and at range and stuff, and they're working on a Pan Asian, like a Wami now, basically, because everything's copy paste. So there's a Pan Asian ship in the pipeline that's the Wami again. This buff to Hizen just makes me think you're going to see a Pan Asian Hizen in the near future.
I mean, it could mean that for sure. I mean, we got a lot of battleships based on this shape. Like Dyson, I think, is similar to this as well. So there's a bunch of this.
No, it's not. It's like the same hull. It's like a Wami in this. It's Ismo hull, basically. It's like the modified Ismo hull.
Oh, you're right. Is Dyson an Ismo? That's right.
Dyson's the one that's like really narrow and long. It's unique.
Yeah. Anyway, but no, I think this is a good buff to this boat, and I think, like you said, I don't think you're going to see a lot of people trotting out Hizen here in the next.
I just don't like any battleship with that reload of 30 when you build for reload.
Yeah.
So
this is the 12-gun battleship penalty they used to give it for, because even at tier 6, like Arizona's the same way. It's like 34 seconds with 12 guns.
Or Oklahoma. Didn't you play that tonight?
I played Oklahoma tonight. California.
It's like a 45-minute reload. Yikes.
Yeah, you can reload Oklahoma once every other time you hit battle. It's pretty wild. This next one is Dalian. So Dalian is a ultralight cruiser. In other words, guns smaller than 152, so you can take advantage of that captain skill without being more detectable. It's getting a range increase from 13.5 to 14.1 and a reload time buff from 4.9 to 4.5 seconds. This is a good buff for Dalian. Dalian is sort of like a Smolensk, but it's Pan-Asian and it's tier 9. It's not a Smolensk, don't confuse it for that, but it's kind of similar in the way you play it, with smoke, standard non-deep water torpedoes, flat shell arcs, and I like Dalian. I think Dalian's a good boat. I don't think she's particularly powerful or popular. I've had some good games in her, and I'm excited about these buffs. But for me, one of the things that's nice about being a weirdo like me who likes bad boats is I'm always like, sweet buffs for my bad boats. I don't think Dalian's that bad, but
no, I don't think Dalian's a bad boat.
These are nice buffs.
Yeah, Dalian is an interesting premium that came out when the Pan Asian Tech Tree cruisers came out, and so like if you've played that line, when you play the Harbin at tier 8, that's a Russian ship. In Pan-Asian clothing, it's a Russian-style cruiser. Then you go to the Sejong, which is American, and then the Jinan is American, right? Dalian is if we stayed Russian, right? So at 9, Dalian is more like Harbin. It plays more like Harbin if you've played Harbin, which you could have gotten for free recently
if you had the tier 8
Stana event thing. The cool things about Dalian though were that it had smoke and that it doesn't have deep water torpedoes. It has torpedoes that hit everybody. And so giving its guns a better range is not bad, because at tier 9 that 13.5 range is pretty punitive. 14.1 is not a ton better, but it helps, and then the reload's nice too. I've also had 1 or 2 good decent games of Dalian. I think it's fun for what it is, and so this is a buff that I don't think it's not bad. And Dalian, the other odd thing with Dalian is when it came out, it was a tier 9 premium that was released for money, and I don't know if it was ever released for anything other than just straight cash.
I think they did put it in Santa crates the year after.
Is it in Santa crates? It might be in some kind of Lunar New Year box now too, or something.
But it's limited distribution.
For a long time, it was like you just had to want to spend like $80 on this or whatever it was.
On a weird version of Harbin / Smolensk kind of. Yeah, I was actually thinking about this one the other day, and I was gonna play it on stream, but then we had such terrible games that I went and I played a hockey game instead. I played some other video game on Tuesday night.
I saw that when
So
you just like
maybe
threw the controller in the air and you're like, I'm out.
I'm out.
And Brand's like, you ditched me.
And I was like, sorry, Brand.
Shut up, Brand. You're gonna win a raffle anyway.
I had to go. All right. Dalian, again, good buffs to Dalian. Did Dalian need them? I don't know. I don't think so, but I'll take them. Let's go all day. Tulsa. Tulsa is getting improved dispersion, which now corresponds with destroyer shell dispersion pattern. So that's basically giving Tulsa like really, really good accuracy. I think that's going to be better. Is that going to be better than like Zhao accuracy? I don't know. It's going to be really good. I'm going to have to wait and see what these numbers look like. I'm interested to see this, because if Tulsa becomes a laser beam, let's go. That could be a fun ship now.
This is kind of a funky throwaway comment here where they're like dispersion improved now corresponds with standard destroyer. Like, that's a big deal. Like,
yes.
All destroyers have much better dispersion than cruisers. And so like the thing I've always hated about Tulsa is that it's a 6-gun Des Moines with like, and if you try to play it bow in, you only have 4 turrets forward, and the dispersion kills you because you've got these 4 shells that are just like
you can't afford to miss 2 shells because you only get forward bow in. Yes.
Yeah, and you will, and it sucks. And so like this I think is actually a pretty nasty buff if you combine this with its radar and its ability then to sit in, and these are 2 American 203s that reload, Des Moines quick.
They're pretty punchy.
This might actually be a really good buff for this ship that I don't generally care for, and I'd be curious to see how it plays with this buff.
This does make me more interested in Tulsa as a ship. It's in my port. I have it, right? But I don't play it. And when I think about, it's kind of funny, and this has been something I've been thinking about. I haven't talked with you about it yet. But for like a year and a half there, Wargaming was like, hey, we're going to put out nothing but battleships with huge guns. And that's all they did. They put out, and I used to joke about, or no, not even joke, but just seriously call it the big gun meta. They were putting out 457s and 460s on everything. Then they put out those 508s or whatever on that British
then you get like, we're getting to, then you go up to like Incomparable and right, freaking Satsuma and stuff, and it's like, no, we're going to these
and now we're seeing this accuracy meta, right? Tennessee, really accurate, smaller guns. Rhode Island kind of does that. We've seen it with some cruisers as well, right? There's a what's the new cruiser that is coming out that has like Zhao-like accuracy? We just saw that announced. Incheon has that. And so like we're seeing a lot of this accuracy, and it's not just those boats. There's more than just those examples where I feel like they're saying let's do an accuracy meta phase. And when you look around at those boats, the cool thing about accuracy is a lot of times they'll take your guns and they'll make them a little smaller, like they do with the battleships. And or give you less of them in the case of Tulsa here. But when they give you the accuracy, if you're skilled, you can make that work, right? If you practice, you can learn how to be really just a murder boat with that thing. Tennessee's the prime example. That boat is dope. Everybody who plays Tennessee loves it, and they like it because it hits what you click on, and you can use it to hit destroyers. And yes, you might get overpens, but if you get 8 overpens on a destroyer, that's still 8,000
smashing damage. Yeah, it does smashing damage to destroyers. That's really good.
I'm excited by the idea that Tulsa is going to jump into that accuracy meta team. It's going to get on that team because Tulsa, you talked about how sad and hard it is to deal with the dispersion, and that just breaks your little heart. Now
in the hull and everything, it's just really hard to try to employ all 6 guns and not get crushed, because if you're trying to like kite away with it and use that rear turret, the angles for the fronts aren't the greatest, and you just get crushed because ultimately it's an Oregon City hull from Rochester that is just kind of a modified Baltimore, so it's not as tanky as like a Des Moines anyway.
Right.
And so it's just hard to employ all those guns. So at least if you're going to use them, and if you're stuck using the front 4 only and having them be accurate, it's a big deal.
It's huge. And so like you and I used to like sass Tulsa for being what it is, but this changes what it is a little bit. And I think for the better. This is a nice buff. I'm excited about this one.
Yep.
Adriatico, again, similar treatment to what we saw with the other Italian destroyers. This time though, we're not going up to 40 seconds. We're going to 60. So this is a lot more speed in terms of duration. And then the same reload is going to drop all the way down to 120. So every 2 minutes, you can go a minute fast, which is great. Bully for Adriatico.
Yeah, that's a big deal. The 25 to 60. Like that's huge. Now you're talking about something useful there. And throw a speed boost module in slot 2.
Yeah,
and
let's go.
I probably wouldn't do it before this one if I cared about it. The problem I've always had with the Adriatico is it has the stink of Tashkent, and so I just never liked it.
The stink of Tashkent is actually a super villain in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I have no idea. No, that's funny. Yeah, I think I free XP'd Adriatico because I wanted to get to Regolo because you told me
it had the stink.
You were like, I got this new Regolo. It's pretty fun. And I was like, I gotta get me one of those.
Yeah.
Brand says the Tashkent hole shape is what sells me. Well, you guys are different people, it seems. Here's Lambros Katsonis. Similar to the Split, similar buffs, right? We're going to get
that's cool.
Reload buff, which I think Katsonis needs. The torpedo launcher buff on this one is nice, especially because this boat has the torp launchers that have a dedicated launcher on each side. It's only 8 seconds, but it's going to give you a little bit more ability to launch torpedoes to the right and the left without having to turn the ship around. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Not a huge buff there in terms of the difference.
This is, again, I'm not going to complain about this one, like making the ship more effective, but I always thought Katsonis was effective to begin with. So
the only thing that makes me struggle with this one is the concealment gets pretty bad here. Like Split is still a little bit stealthy. It's not super stealthy, but it's a little bit stealthy. And then Katsonis just throws caution to the wind. And that's true for Gdansk as well, right? It also doesn't have any concealment, really.
Yeah, Katsonis isn't going to do anything with speed. But you have smoke and I played it. I remember when I played Katsonis, I played it more like a light cruiser. It's kind of like Tromp in that when you look at the ship itself, it feels more like it was a small cruiser than it was a DD anyway.
Mm-hmm. It definitely has that cruiser flavor for sure, yeah. Following Katsonis, we got Tsurugi, everyone's favorite Tsurugi.
Notorious test ship Tsurugi.
Notorious test ship. She is, Tsurugi was the Tier 9 premium battleship that they sold alongside the Bungo Line's release. So the Bungo Line came out. This was the premium that came with it. I kind of liked Tsurugi. I don't think she was super powerful or anything, but I do think that she was a good little ship. Or at least I enjoyed her, but she is a 6-gun battleship, and that is definitely something you and I've talked about a lot as a kind of a weakness. And so what they've done here, this is kind of a combination of benefits. So 1 second reload buff for the main battery. Okay, big deal, not a huge thing. The HE shell ballistics are going to be similar to the AP shell. So they used to be a little bit more lofty. Now they're going to match identical to the ones that are the AP, which means you won't have to change your aiming thing. It's going to reduce the skill need there, which is good. Turning radius improves. This is good because this boat's long and skinny, and if you ever do a gamer turn in Tsurugi, it's dangerous, especially if you do it at a dumb time like I tend to do. So I'll take a 80-meter smaller turning circle. That's a good thing. And then, of course, a little bit more repair party. So you're getting a little bit of reload, a little bit of maneuverability, a little bit of survivability. I feel like this is kind of an all-round buff and polish to the Tsurugi to make her a little more appealing to players.
Yeah, I think, with the 24 second, when you put reload in slot 6, you're going to get close to 20 there, right? You're going to be on the main battery, and that's those are 457s on this ship, right? So this has like the 457s from Bungo, basically. It's Tier 9, so I think that's appealing. Tsurugi's armor is junk, and so adding that fourth repair party is good if you can get to it.
You got to live to be able to use it.
Yeah, well, its armor is really thin. It's very battle cruisery. So like if you can survive to get to that heal, that's good. The turning radius change is fine because a lot of times you want to kite in this ship because of the weird torpedoes. The torp angles on it are rough.
Oh, I forgot that she even has torpedoes.
Yeah, it has deep waters. It has like deep waters or a Saucio torps or something weird.
What's the range on those? It's only like 12, right?
It's not huge, but
about your torps
the angles on them are bad. They're like they're like Miyoko bad. So, again, that's not a bad.
15 kilometers.
That's not if you can turn to get around to dumping those torps as you're getting melted, all the better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This isn't going to turn her into something that we start seeing in competitive modes, but I think for people who want to take this out into randoms and things like that, it's
probably in Christmas boxes,
help.
right? So there's probably more people getting it now.
Yeah, I think it is. Republic is getting a buff, and Republic kind of similar to Champagne, good at range, pretty accurate, 2 turrets, 1 fore, 1 aft. This is jumping to a sigma of 2.1 from a sigma of 2, so it's just getting a little bit more accuracy to help with the flavor she's already got. I don't think there's a 40-minute conversation to have about Republic, but I think it's a nice buff.
Yeah, I mean, that's a ship that you don't see a lot of people play that much anymore, and so it's already got really long range out of the box, and so making it more accurate at range at least fits the meta. I think you might see more of them with people just hanging back and being abusive with it. It's because it has big guns. It's got
or 30s or so. It's got odd numbered guns because it's French.
So like in the HE's good, and if the AP is more accurate, or you want to HE spam with it, at least you're going to have an easier time landing more shells on your target.
Yep, and I think there'll be folks who like accuracy who will be like, ooh, they'll be drawn to that if they know about the buff, right? If you're just playing and not paying attention, then you will not change your Republic behavior. Genon's coming out, getting a little bit more health. We've seen other buffs to the Genon and Sejong line, and that's partly come just because she didn't used to have a hull repair, right? So they gave that to it last time. And now this time around, I think it's been a little while, maybe a year, but they're giving it a few more hit points, and then they're increasing some of the damage output for the HE shells. And then the fire chance is going up from 9 to 11%. So when you think about a 2% increase, that's actually a 22% increase over what the fire chance was before. That's a pretty stout push. And then whatever 100 hit points going into 1800 is in terms of a percentage for damage. So that's kind of a nice little buff. It's going to be, more than 5%. I don't know. I'm not not good at doing mental math. Then the torpedo damage is going up too for Genon. So this looks like just generally Genon was underperforming. People weren't playing it. And so they decided to punch her up and give her a little more survivability, a little more gun damage, a few more fires, and let's go ahead and give folks torpedo damage out of it too.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with these changes. I think, the HP pool is so small on the ship to begin with, but lately there's been a lot of tier 9 and tier 10 really like ultralight cruisers, it feels like, coming out that have these really minuscule HP ranges. 20, not even 1800 hit point buff in the grand scheme of things is maybe like one more overpen from the kind of battleship guns that it faces all the time that are going to kill it anyway, but making it light more fires and do more damage, more shell damage, and then obviously it's always been really good at dumping all those deep waters, and so those hitting harder is kind of scary. And we've talked a lot about how this ship, its preference of course is to be in a defensive posture and have people push into it. That means that when that doesn't happen, you're going to have a pretty low damage game. And so I think that's going to make the stats on this boat kind of weird. I think it's a challenging boat to balance because of that. Because it's hard in the meta where everything,
right?
It's hard in the meta where everything you want to farm is hanging back. It probably feels pretty good if you played it in the well, if you could hit one with torps. But like with all the pushing Pan Am battleships the last couple months, maybe this is a ship that more people should be playing again. But
yeah, that's.
I see Genon out there though. I see Genon. I never say Sejong. So I think the people playing Genon are people who've had it for a while and they just like it.
Yeah. She's out there. I mean, that is one thing. Like, whereas like if I look at Republic, the last ship, I feel like I see more Genons than Republics. They're not.
I feel like I see more Genons than Woosters.
That could be true too. Yeah, I feel like Wooster doesn't get pulled out too often either. But so like it's kind of interesting to see this one on the list with such a wide variety of buffs. But I guess here we go. Attilio Regolo here, our tier 10 Italian battleship, destroyer, getting the same treatment we saw before, 25 seconds to 60, 60 to 120. Love this for Regolo. I'm a Regolo fan anyway. Let's go. This is great.
Yep. I think that's
we've said everything.
That whole line 7 up is getting this buff. So versions of this buff. So.
So we got an italicized section here for Zhao. It says Zhao has received various buffs over time, but we continue to hear feedback from players, volunteers, and community contributors to improve her further. Based on your feedback and suggestions on how to make her more comfortable to play, we're widening her turret angles and adding a post-launch turning feature to her torpedoes. We will keep a close eye on her combat statistics going forward, as the ship already has solid overall performance. So what they're saying is, you guys complained a lot, so we're going to change it for you, but if it's too strong, we're going to dial it back. you know. So that's what they've warned us with. So if you go out and play Gina or Zhao here in the next few months, you know, maybe don't try so hard. You know, let's let these buffs stick around. What they've done is they've improved the main battery turret angles. The first turret has been widened by 8 degrees, the second turret by 1 degree, third turret 4 degrees, and the fourth turret by 9 degrees. So this should help her get that back turret and the front turret on target a lot better than she was able to. I was not imagining we'd get anything above like 5 degrees. So if they were ever going to adjust that, that's a crazy adjustment. Not that I think it's insane to make this adjustment, but it's just maybe more than I thought we would get. But I guess we'll see how it feels in practice. And then she's got turning torpedoes, or as we call them, wiggly torps. What this means is your forward firing torpedo angles will be increased by 10 degrees, which is not a lot, but a little bit. But your backward firing torpedo angles are going to be increased by 45 degrees. So if you are escaping from damage, just like all of the Japanese torpedo boats in this, or cruisers in this line, not the torpedo boats, but the Zhao line cruisers, most of them can shoot torpedoes behind them better than in front of them. And then Zhao doesn't, and Zhao and I think Ibuki both don't have as good of angles there. It might even start in Mogami. And so they've expanded that back firing angle by 45 degrees, that's big. That's a quarter of a circle, right? For anybody paying attention at home, or an eighth of a circle, excuse me. And so we'll see what that looks like when it comes out. So this is not hit points. It's not DPM. It's none of those things. It's just opportunities to put your ordnance onto a target.
I'm looking at
I talked for too long there, but what do you got for
that's fine.
that?
Well, yeah, but you like Zhao. I'm looking at the current firing angles for Zhao's turrets. So what did they add to turret 1?
8 degrees.
So right now turret 1 is 42 degrees. So that makes turret 1 50 degrees.
Yeah.
Turret 2, actually it must go the other way. So it'd go from 42 to 34.
Are you looking on?
I'm looking on Ship Tool, right? So before the angle for the front turret was 42 degrees, the second turret was 35 degrees. They only tweaked that one by 1 degree, right?
The second turret by 1 degree, yes.
Yeah. So now turret A and turret B have the same, because right now they don't. They're vastly different. They're 35 and like 42. So now they're both going to be like 34.
Yeah,
so they're gonna dab really deep together over your shoulder. I'm curious how that's gonna look, if there's gonna be clipping, like, or what they did there, because like
that's a good question.
Yeah, so if you go into Zhao,
I got it up on the screen there.
You want to pull up that view and go to main battery. That's what I'm talking about. So mouse over turret A.
Where does it show the?
Down there, the pink thing. The ship.
Oh, like down here. I see.
Yeah, so mouse over each turret, and it'll just show you that one.
So if this adds 8 degrees, man, that's going to be an aggressive angle.
Yeah, because if you look at turret B, it's 35. So if they're putting a degree on that, they're going to be the same. And so I'm guessing that's the same for the aft, where it's 40 and 45 currently. I bet they're going to make them match on their forward angles.
That's going to be dope.
Yeah, it's going to be way better.
I'm excited about that.
Now click on the torpedoes tab there, because that's the next one I want to look at.
Mm-hmm.
The angles on its torpedoes currently are rough, as you can see there.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so they're
10 degrees forward and 45 back. So you're going to be able to shoot straight behind you.
You're going to be able to shoot straight back. They're going to drop out and they're going to turn. And bigly, on the Odo does now. And even forward, they're going to turn a lot more aggressively.
They will.
Because those torpedoes are so far back, yeah. Those are pretty
awesome.
Those are big buffs to like making Zhao feel more playable.
They really are. And again, they did issue this with a caution that says, hey guys, we could pull this back if she's too strong. I hope that she comes out and she's fine, right? That would be my preference there.
That was awesome. So like Zhao is awesome, and I've never these things will make Zhao better. And I know people complain about how many hit points Zhao has, but Zhao has sneaky good armor.
Yeah.
I never understand why I see gobs of Yoshino and I don't see Zhao anymore. And I mean I kind of get why people play Yoshino, but like this version of Zhao, especially with the concealment, is going to be so much fun to play. Because I've always hated how the turrets don't line up on the kite. You have to give really bad angles to get all the guns involved in the kite.
Yeah.
And now you're going to be able to dump those torps like in the kite out the back.
Like, and by the way, your concealment's like 10 kilometers. Your torps go farther than that. They go 12, I think. Yeah. So like, Fuzz brings up a good point. And this is kind of an interesting thing about today. Like Fuzz says Yoshino's easy to get. And I think if you're a newer player to World of Warships, if you started playing a year ago and you said, hey guys, what lines should I play? The only CC who's going to tell you to get Zhao is me. I'm pretty sure. There's probably other people who are fans of Zhao. But long story short, you're not going to get a lot of positive reviews about Zhao. And so people aren't going to go out and grind the line and buy the ship and play it. But they will get coal ships, right? And so when you got Yoshino, you got Azuma. Maybe that's one of the reasons why we see those boats so often. But
I think it's because those players like sitting at 20 kilometers and spamming HE, but whatever.
For sure. And you can only do a Zhao at like 17 or something, right?
Yeah, you can only do a Zhao at 17. Zhao's just, in my opinion, is a more comfortable ship to play, and this is going to make it really good.
Yeah, I'm excited about these changes. I love a good Zhao buff. So for me, this is great all day long. Let's see. Yumahari, Adatara, and Bungo. So we talked about Tsurugi already. Let's talk about these three. HE shell ballistic parameters have changed. This is going to result in the flight trajectory becoming flatter, identical to that of the AP shells of the ship. So same as that buff they put on Tsurugi. They're going to make the HE and the AP shells the same.
To be fair, I didn't even remember that they had different velocities on those ships for HE and AP, because they do that so seldomly anymore.
It's not super common, but every now and again we see it, right? Thanks for the follows, everybody. I've been trying to catch you guys in chat, but thanks, everybody.
I mean, that's cool. Like, and on these ships, like the AP pen is so wonky on these because it's deceiving based on how big you think the shells are. That in some scenarios you should really be spamming HE with these anyhow. So if the HE's easier to use, that's fine.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. These boats, we talk about them, they do have the 457 or 460s. I can't remember what measure it is on these ones, but I know it's 460 on Yamato.
Bungo has a 457 at the end. It's the same as Tsurugi.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. But long story short, they get the overmatch, but they don't get the penetration, right? And so great for overmatching cruisers at angles, and great for not overpenning cruisers, but not so great for
not good for penetrating battleships.
And so that's what you're talking about, right? When you're saying to get to the HE.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Let me hit these italics down here. So we got some super ships that are going to get some attention. It says the following changes, and I may or may not remember all the details of these combat instructions, so we'll see how this goes. The following changes to combat instruction conditions were made in order to improve the overall playing experience, specifically in situations when shooting targets that you lose spotting on. So you guys, if you've ever played one of these boats and you're trying to shoot targets and those hits are what keep your combat instructions charged up and then you lose spotting on them, and that's really frustrating when you're trying to charge up. Or while blind firing at a target that's in smoke or behind an obstacle. The amount of progress for fulfilling the new condition has been increased to compensate for the new requirement of direct hits on a target. Hanover and Admiral Ushakov have received additional conditions to complement their gameplay and improve their effectiveness in battle. Additionally, we have made changes to the hydroacoustic search consumable for Hanover and Clausewitz. Although Clausewitz and Hanover perform with intolerances, they fall on the low end for super ships. So we're going to give them some buffs to emphasize their traditional German strength of long-range hydroacoustic search. So we'll get to that second part later. Satsuma is getting combat instruction parameters changed. They've removed whatever the current ones are, and I apologize that I don't have them memorized, but when you hit a main battery shell, you're going to get an 8% buff. From what they described up above, it sounds like it was the same, but the percentage is now just higher. Let me grab a
Satsuma. Even looking on Ship Tool, it doesn't tell you what the trigger was. I thought on Sats it was you had to hit or get near a hit, but that sounds probably not right.
It says it is hit the area where an enemy ship is located with main battery shells, 5%.
Yeah.
Does that just mean hit the square on the map? I never really thought about this.
But I always thought it went up even if you hit near them and missed. But
that's what this sounds, because this does not say getting a direct hit.
Either way, what they're saying is now you hit them and it goes up 8% instead of 5, which is probably what it was before. Is now it's like 5 to 8, so it just goes up quicker.
Yeah. Admiral Ushakov is getting the same thing. Hit an enemy and it goes up 6%, and then 2,000% potential damage gives you 0.1%. Hanover is getting hitting an enemy ship is 10%. Secondary shells are bumping you 1.5%. And then it's getting the world's first 7-kilometer hydroacoustic search module. This has not existed in the game. This is new. This is the first time ever a ship has had a hydro longer than 6 kilometers. So this is a big deal, actually. Clausewitz is getting the same thing. Yeah, gosh. When I first read these, I thought that was a little zany, honestly.
I don't like playing any of those super battleships, but I've played Clausewitz, so like giving it 7-kilometer hydro is cool.
Yeah, it's good for Clausewitz.
You know,
yeah,
I usually play Clausewitz a lot further back, spamming HE and stuff, but you know.
But I'll take 7 kilometers to detect ships that are all up in my business. And I assume that means we'll also get the matching torpedo detection range increase, but we'll have to wait and see.
I would assume. I don't know why Georg Hoffman didn't get this new unveiled 7-kilometer hydro. That would have really sold some of those things.
Isn't that a super ship? It's just a regular boat. Yeah, I mean, they did say up here that the reason they gave that buff is
nobody plays it.
Lower on the super ship performance scale.
Yeah,
they're good.
You know why Hanover's lower on the super ship performance scale is because the whole top of the ship is made out of kindling.
They've made it out of that.
It's got the same problem that Royson and GK had before it, which is the whole damn thing lights on fire if you look at it funny. So
that's true.
Even though it has 1 billion hit points, like it's not fun to be on fire all the time.
How about this Jacksonville nerf? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You got more?
Nah, I just say nobody plays Clausewitz because there's nothing special about it.
Yeah. Clausewitz, yeah. And I think this actually gives it a reason. This is something special. It's not the biggest thing in the world, but it's unique to the super ship version of that German cruiser line. And I like that part of it. But as a destroyer guy, I'm like 7-kilometer radar or hydro. Get out of here with that. But like, okay, it's super. It's a little more super. Take care, Gongo. Jacksonville is getting a nerf. We haven't had a lot of nerfs yet, but here's one. Jacksonville's main battery range is coming down 1 kilometer from 18.2 to 17.2.
Good.
So there you go. I think Jacksonville's pretty powerful right now, and it's really powerful in the hands of the Chads. So
now slam that nerf in before 14.0 because we need it now in the clan battle season.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
It'd be great.
I think that's pretty cool. The next up section here says we're updating ASW parameters for several ships, making them more standard for the values. And this next section is a lot of ASW changes. Montcalm, the airstrike time is getting buffed 10 seconds. I'm going to hit these relatively quickly and stop on a couple of interesting ones. Canarias, you're getting only 1 bomb instead of 3, and the damage is going up from 1,600 to 2,900. This is kind of a big nerf to Canarias, which was apparently...
Who knew that Canarias was the best sub-hunting cruiser at Tier 6?
I didn't know this, and I love this boat. I have like 50 battles on this boat. But, you only bump
now
it
it's not. Now it has the same anemic air ASW as every other Tier 6 cruiser, where it only drops 1 bomb in a little rectangle.
Yeah, I kind of wish it still had 3 bombs if they were going to... I don't know what. I guess it was low damage before. So they buffed the damage to twice as much almost, but not quite, and then they reduced the bombs. But they did give you bigger bomb splash damage, which is probably not going to make up for the lack of number of bombs. FR-25 is getting a buff to depth charge damage. And then here's the one everybody should be excited about. Massachusetts and Musashi are getting unnerfed with their really short range airstrike. So they're going from 5 kilometers to 10 kilometers like all battleships of their tier. And the damage is coming down. They did have big damage before, 4,200. It's coming down to 2,500, which I think is more in line with normal.
Yeah, it's all standardized. There's very little flavor now.
Especially for battleships.
Across that, it's just like at this tier, you get this range, and it dumps this many little bombs, and they do this much damage, and they've just kind of standardized that. I think that's sad. I think that different nations should, have better or different, but
some different flavor
whatever.
There. Yeah. So this is a nice thing to see them I would say correct. Like I understand these ships were powerful, but this was kind of punitive, and I'm glad
all of these things where they gave crummy ASW or they do something bad to these older premiums that they've taken out of the game that they can't nerf on the originals. They're like, well, we added ASW and we're gonna make it bad.
Shadow nerf.
Like that sucks.
That was not cool. This is one thing I was not pleased with.
But this is a good change because it was a bummer. It's a bummer enough to be in Musashi and not be able to fight carriers at all unless you can see them and shoot them.
Yeah,
but it was also even worse than they added a whole nother class that you couldn't interact with. So this is better.
Yeah. So warm up your Musashis and your Massachusettses. We can bring them back out again.
And your Hizens.
And your Hizens. Orage is getting more bombs. It's going from 8 to 10. That's not particularly interesting. Z42, the steel ship. Won best steel ship last year. I would not have voted for this one. I did not vote for this one for best steel ship at last year's Golden Barnacles. Depth charge damage was increased by a couple hundred points, and they got a few more bombs. So that's more ASW power for Z42. And then all the A-Gears plus Siegfried are getting fewer airstrike bombs, but much more damage. So they're dropping from 3 bombs to 2, and they're jumping up to 4,200 damage with larger splash damage. So good for the A-Gears plus Siggy.
I think it's funny that Siegfried's in that list. It's like, no, it's all the same parameters. It's funny.
I did think
we just left it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, Z42, like, that's a cool change, I guess, but
I don't know that that's like
at least that has hydros, and so if you're stuck fighting a sub, you have a little bit of a chance.
It's got hydros, it's got rapid firing guns. Like I think Z42 can do work if it finds a submarine up close. It's got all the tools, but it's still kind of tough as a destroyer to chase down a submarine. Yeah. Skada, thanks for joining me, man. This was Buffs and Nerfs with Clyde and Skada here on Clyde Plays News today. That was fun. We haven't done one of these in a while.
Every 6 months when they put out one of these slides.
This was good. I appreciate you taking some time. I know I asked you to stay up a little late, so I'm glad you had the moments to do that for me.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, buddy.
Cool. Well, I'll let you roll, bud, and then we'll wrap up the news here. Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, man. All right, folks, that is the end of our coverage of Buffs and Nerfs. I hope you enjoyed the show. This will be on YouTube later. If you are interested in watching this again, sharing it with friends, whatever, you can do that at youtube.com/ClydePlays. And I think at this point, we're going to go back and we're going to do a giveaway, which has been running for a long time because this took a long time, but we're giving away a CC container. Please type !pizza into the Twitch chat right now and you can get yourselves entered to win. If you're on YouTube and you don't watch the Twitch channel, what are you doing? Come over and hang out with us. Twitch.tv/ClydePlaysLive. We do World Warships over there 3 times per week, and we would love to have you on the show. Do come by and say hello to us, visit with us. Maybe you're not into Twitch, that's okay. You can watch here on YouTube as well if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Twitch with me right now, you can go to YouTube, like I mentioned. And of course, don't forget there's the Clyde Plays Discord as well. If you like talking to the people in chat or in the comments here, you can find a lot of them on our Discord server. The link is in the video's description on YouTube, or you can type !Discord into the chat and that'll pop that up right there. Thanks everybody for watching. Goodbye.
This has been the news on Clyde Plays Live.
Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled peppers.